What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Echoes of Elsewhere, the podcast where we follow faded footsteps and crack open forgotten doors. I'm your host, Courtney Autumn, and today we're heading into one of the most debated and misunderstood corners of the urban exploration community, which is gatekeeping. Now, before anyone gets all crazy, this is not about calling anyone out. I am unpacking why gatekeeping exists, when it's helpful, when it's harmful, and how newcomers can navigate it without stepping on any toes. I'm also reading some of the input I received on Instagram from some of you guys. So gatekeeping at its core is the act of keeping information, usually locations, private within the urbex community. It's the reason you might have messaged someone and asked for an amazing spot and gotten a response like, "Sorry, I don't share locations," aka me, if you've ever slid into my DMs or my messages and asked me for something and I don't know who you are and I've never met you in person, that's probably what I've said, to be honest. And we'll get into why that is, but it can feel like a slap in the face when you're just getting started, and I totally get that. Gatekeeping isn't as much about ego as some of you would think. I mean, sometimes it is an ego game, and I get that. For me personally, it's not. It's more so about protection. So yeah, that's my take. Everyone has a different perspective and a reason why they do what they do and share how they share or don't. But like I said, I wanted to hear straight from you guys your take on why you gatekeep some locations. And I loved all of your responses. Thank you to those who weighed in. I will share a few. One of them came from Mockingbird Photography, who said, "Only share with the right people. So many have a bad rep for stealing, ruining, and so on." Rose Urbex brought up two really good points. The first thing she said is preserving locations and gatekeeping helps protect the place from being trashed and destroyed. She also said maintaining the chase. If you didn't put in the effort to find it, you shouldn't be handed it. And I totally second that, Rose. And last but not least, Kenzie said blown up spots due to vandalism or theft, which basically touches base on what I mentioned, which is that gatekeeping is oftentimes more so about protection and about preservation, and a lot less about being secretive or having an ego or making it some sort of game. These responses really hit on the core idea. Gatekeeping isn't always about keeping people out. It's about protecting what we love. We're not hoarding spots for the clout, even though some of you might be, and that's okay. Do it for whatever reason you want. But for most of us, it's a lot deeper than that. So I want to break down why gatekeeping even exists in urbex to begin with, which really, in my opinion, boils down to three big reasons, which the first being preservation. Like I just said, once a location goes viral, it often goes downhill fast. Vandalism, graffiti, broken windows, stolen shit, you name it. The moment a spot hits TikTok or even YouTube, whatever, it's got a target on its back. So it's a tricky game to play, and that's why gatekeeping, I think, exists first and foremost. The second reason I believe it exists is safety. Some places are straight up dangerous. You know, from floor to ceiling, a house can be caving in, and a lot of times we don't know what someone's experience level is in urbex if we've never explored with someone, or if someone we know personally hasn't explored with someone that might be asking us for a location. So knowing someone is a huge factor in it, because it's not just about the trust, it's also about just knowing your level of experience, your level of commitment, how you respect the space, all of that. Because like I said, I don't know who you are if I've never met you. I don't know if you're very accident prone. I don't know if you're going to go by yourself. I don't know if you've done this 1,000 times or 1 time or 10 times. So giving out an address to someone without experience or without knowing their experience is like handing a parachute to someone who's never jumped out of a plane or off of something. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So that's a big factor in it. And then obviously, last but not least, is the legal risk, which goes hand in hand with the safety thing. You know, if I don't know you and I don't know your experience level, are you likely to get yourself caught? Are you doing stupid shit? I don't know. And I think that's the way a lot of us approach it, is if we don't know you and we've never been exposed to how you do things and how you navigate urbex and all of that, then yeah, we don't know how likely you are to get in trouble. And the last thing we want is to feel responsible for you getting in trouble because we gave you the spot. Just like we don't want to be responsible for if you show up there and you break your leg or your arm because you weren't careful and we gave you the spot. You know, we feel responsible for that. So it's like, it's towing the line between looking out for you if we're not giving you the spot. But I get that it does take a hit to your pride to hear no from people who are unwilling to share locations. I have ran into those people myself. I've been on both sides of the table, you know, so I know how it feels. And if you've ever come and asked me for a spot and I've said I don't share locations, just know that I'm not lying. I don't share locations. If you've explored with me in person, I've probably fed you some spots, you know, and that's just the name of my game. There's literally one person I can think of that I've never met in person that I've given locations to. But the main thing is that there are pros, obviously, to gatekeeping, which is, like I said, the preservation of it, the safety and the legal risk. And there are cons, which is it can feel exclusive, especially for newcomers. And I don't think that's our goal, at least not for me. I can only speak for myself, obviously. But for me, I don't want urbex to feel exclusive, like you have to have the golden ticket to gain entry or something. But I do feel like you have to prove your worth a little bit. I didn't come into this community empty-handed. I probably have more pins than most of the people in this area. And that's because I put the time in. I've spent thousands of hours on my Google map. And that's another reason why I don't like to give spots out, because I know that I've put so much work into the spots that I've found that I've hardly asked anyone for. And I'm kind of proud of that, you know? And I feel like most people should try to come into the community with something to offer and not just expect to start fresh and be fed a bunch of spots. I know that's working for some people, and mad props to you guys for doing it that way. I don't prefer to do it that way. I like Rose said, I like the chase. I appreciate knowing when I show up to a spot that I took a long time to find it. And those are really the good spots because they're not blown up and no one has taken 1,000 pictures of it, or there's not 1,000 pictures of it floating around online, I should say. So yeah, I don't know. These are my personal takes, obviously. I think another con to gatekeeping can be that it can limit the sharing of knowledge or connections between explorers. But I feel like if you do things the right way, even as someone who's new to urbex, I feel like if you do it right, then you can't go wrong, kind of thing. If that makes sense. But I don't know. Again, it just goes back to putting in your work, whether that means you're putting your own work into searching on Google or doing your research to find locations yourself, or you're putting the work in to establish some connections and relationships in the community. Because I don't know, I just don't feel like it should be very instantly gratifying, I guess. But urbex is special to me because of the way that I like to do it. And I know that's a different journey for everyone. So like I said, for me, I like to come prepared. I like to come with something to offer. I don't like to show up empty-handed. And I definitely feel like the people that are close with me and that I've explored with and that have that kind of bond with me through urbex definitely know that I don't show up empty-handed. I don't show up unprepared. I'm prepared. I'm organized. I have spots. I have stuff. I got my own shit, And I feel like if you approach it that way, I have had a lot of success. I'll just put it that way. I have a lot of good friends in this community now, and I'm super grateful for the connections that I've made and the trust that I've established between the people that I explore with, because it does take time and it isn't just automatic, I think that's what makes urbex special to me anyway. I don't mind being patient. I don't mind putting in the work. I don't mind proving myself, I guess. And I think I've touched base on that before in an interview, but this is a super cutthroat community. We are a bunch of assholes. There's a lot of nice assholes, but we're all assholes. And a lot of us have egos, and a lot of us are a little rougher around the edges, and there are some really, really sweet people underneath that firmer exterior. But yeah, that's not to say that we don't welcome new people. We definitely want as many people who appreciate abandoned places to explore with and to get to know and all of that. We like to enhance our community, not take away from it. Anyway, there is a fine line between protecting spaces and building walls around the community, and honestly, that is where etiquette comes in. Think of urbex kind of like a dinner party situation where you're welcome to come, but there's always a few unspoken rules. It's very much like that. The first one I can think of is don't publicly share exact addresses or coordinates. Blurring backgrounds and photos is common. Vague captions are your friend. And I think discretion is key. I hear a lot of people get backlash for altering pictures a certain way, but if you really just take a second to think about it, I think we can all understand why people do that and why it's really necessary to do that. So yeah, don't publicly share stuff, especially not in comments. I just think that's obnoxious. The next part of the etiquette is to ask questions respectfully. So instead of sliding into someone's DM that you've never met and you just know they're a cool explorer and being like, hey, what's the spot? Where's this at? What's the address? You can try to strike a conversation first. I don't know, have a little bit of back and forth with someone before you just go asking them for a location, and maybe try asking questions around the type of location. Say things like, are there any types of tips for a building like this, for a bando like this, instead of being like, hey, what's the address? I think that a lot of us feel almost offended when people are just like, hey, where is this? Because you don't know where we got it from. And that's the issue for me, is like, you don't know if I spent 70 hours on a map and finally found this spot. You don't know if my best friend for over a year gave me this spot after I established so much trust between us. You don't know. So to assume that it's just that easy is also kind of rude for the person that is receiving the message. So just have a little bit of tact. Have a little bit of class. I don't know. Just have a little bit of respect. Like I said, ask questions respectfully, and just remember you're talking to a human being. You're not talking to a machine who's just going to spit out locations. And that takes me right into my next thing, which is something I already touched base on, which is building trust. Urbex is a relationship game. So join forums, go on group explores, support people's work. Once you're seen as someone who respects the code, doors will start opening, literally and figuratively. Other than that, as far as etiquette is concerned, be mindful of what you're posting, who's in your photos, who's in your videos, what you're doing in your pictures, what you're doing in your videos. It's always safer to ask people for permission to post them versus just assuming they're cool with it. A lot of my friends, even if they posted me 1,000 times, they'll always ask me, hey, are you cool with me posting this? Are you cool with me tagging you in this? And all of that really just goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's the legal aspect. We are doing illegal things, technically speaking. And that's why it's important to develop trust, develop relationships, and develop connections in the community, because there is no other way to display your own intentions, your own experience, and let that resonate with people, and let that be your footprint and how you navigate through the community and through your own explorers and through your own journey with urbex in general. And to all my fresh boots, to all my new urbexers, welcome to the community. First of all, I think it's one of the most thrilling, meaningful hobbies out there. But like I said, it is not a free for all. And I think a couple of things to focus on would be to start small. Go for spots that are well known or have a little bit of an easier access. You'll learn a lot by just exploring with your phone or camera in hand. You'll learn a lot about yourself, what you're willing to endure, what you're willing to go through, how far you're willing to take things, and really just getting out there and doing it on a smaller scale is probably the safest stepping stone into getting to a place where you are doing the riskier stuff, the bigger stuff, maybe the not so well-known stuff. And I think that the best way to get there is to have a little bit of experience, and why not start with an easier place? Why not start with a little less risky, a little bit safer, a little more well-known? That way, when you get into the bigger stuff and the scarier stuff and the more thrilling stuff, you don't feel so much like a newbie. In my opinion, I don't think that I would have done it any differently. I definitely started small and started working my way up. And really, I haven't really even worked my way up. I don't think I haven't done anything like major, but I don't know. I think I'm up to almost 80 spots now. So I've definitely done my fair share of things in the past 7 months. But other than starting small, research is key. Old maps, tax records, local history forums. The fun part for me has always been the detective work, and sometimes that comes after exploring, but most of the time it comes before. So finding your own spot hits different, and you can do that a lot easier if you are willing to do the research and put in some time. And last but not least, I think being cool with hearing no is key, because it's not personal. Most of us have been burned before by cops, vandals, or people that we have even trusted or called our friends. The no you get today is likely for good reason, outside of the main ones I already listed, like preserving the spot and keeping you safe and out of trouble. But sometimes we learn the hard way, and odds are we've experienced our share of backlash or regretting sharing a spot. So it's not always about you. It's not always personal. In fact, it's probably rarely ever about you or personal. We don't ever just come out of the gate trying to gatekeep. Seriously, though, I don't think any of us are ever trying to just be rude or trying to keep a location to ourselves for no good reason. I think we all have good reason, and I think the best thing that you can do is just respect how everyone plays this game and does this the way they do it, because they do it the way they do it for a reason. So respecting everyone's approach and the way they navigate urbex is a huge, huge starting point. That probably is the best foot to start on. But other than that, just know that we're all in the same community, and whether it feels like that or not because of beef or drama or whatever you hear that goes on, we are all in the same community, and we all love urbex and we all love abandoned places and we all love to do this for one reason or the next, So if you approach someone or experience someone who's gatekeeping or seems like they're being stingy with info, just know that it's likely not a personal attack against you. It's not to offend you. It's not to hurt your feelings. And I think that goes for any and all of us, hopefully. I don't like to speak for other people on here. Y'all know. So in wrapping this episode up, gatekeeping can feel super frustrating. But in the urbex world, it is often born from love. Love of decay, love of beauty, of hidden stories, and a deep, deep desire to keep those spaces intact for the next person who wants to wander. So maybe instead of calling it gatekeeping, we can start calling it gate guarding. We're not keeping people out. We're trying to keep the magic in, Huge thanks to everyone who sent in their thoughts for this episode. I loved reading through them. If this episode sparked something in you, whether it's a hot take, a story, or a rant about someone who got your favorite spot blown up, send it my way. I'm always down to hear from fellow explorers. And if you enjoyed today's episode, share it, rate it, and give me a follow on social media at urbex echoes for more behind the scenes peeks and photos into the abandoned places that I've been to. I will be back next week. Until then, keep exploring the allure in the abandoned, the beauty of decay, and the echoes of elsewhere.